All right, music is down. That means we are live. Welcome, everybody. My name is Andrew Krug, and I will be your host tonight for Behind the Scanner. Today's date is June 5th, 2014. This is episode number 7 of our Thursday night broadcast. Before we get into the broadcast real quick, we'll just go over a couple of housekeeping items. Just a reminder that if you can't watch the whole show live, you can watch it tomorrow unedited on our YouTube channel. YouTube channel is just youtube.com/behindthescanner, all one word. You can find it there. We've also enabled Q&A like we do every week for this live hangout. So if you have a specific question for a guest, please submit it, and also tag the person. Just type @ and their name, and we'll know who to ask the question of. Our producer Daphne is going to be checking your submissions throughout the night, so she will pick one or two to ask live during each interview, and possibly maybe use one for our panel topic, so keep that in mind as well. Also, we've got a Google form, so you can submit recommendations for guests in the future. The link for that is bit.ly/BTS_guest, BTS obviously for Behind the Scanner, so bit.ly/BTS_guest. All right, with that, let's get started. My two co-hosts for the show should be familiar to you if you've tuned in each and every week like I know you do. My first co-host tonight is Jorge Dreo. Where's his little intro? Here we go.
Release the Kraken!
That's right, release the Kraken. In game, you can find him as Triskel. He is my Latin brother from another mother. Please welcome Jorge. Welcome, Jorge.
Hello, everyone. Hi. Well, finally we hit 7th, and that's my lucky number, and I hope it's gonna be a lucky number because I can't set up my lower third, and I was getting some problems with the Hangout, and well,
that's all good.
Well,
okay, it's live.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Andrew.
All right, our second co-host for tonight. You know her, you love her. In game, you can ping her as Miss Parker. She's from Washington, D.C. And
Miss Parker!
There we go, a little delayed. And she's got her Platinum Explorer badge, which means she gets around everybody. Please welcome Daphne. How's it going?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. It's going pretty well.
All right. Let's jump into it, shall we, Daphne?
Yes. Well, I'm very excited to introduce our first guest from my home state of California. He's no stranger to sand, surf, and explosions. So please welcome Mark Dobson, a.k.a. OG Dauber.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mark.
So we talked a little bit about this, but for those who don't know yet, what kind of work do you do?
I'm a stuntman, Hollywood stuntman, I guess, professional stuntman for TV and film.
That is very interesting. Have you always wanted to work in Hollywood, or is it just something you sort of fell into?
You know, I kind of fell into it through. I was a professional racer before doing stunts, and but you know, I guess I never really knew what I wanted to do. Of course, as a kid, you know, like I always did kind of stunt stuff, you know, daredevil stuff, and I guess it just kind of fits in with. I enjoy what I do, in other words.
Great. Hi, Mark. Finally,
Hi,
we meet face to face. You're a legend. You're a legend. Also here in Mexico, and I'm glad to know you. Well, face to face, as I said. And what do you like to do when you are not working and you are not playing Ingress?
I tend to stay active, ride motorcycles, street bikes, do track days in my car, jet ski, tow and surf. Really a lot of motorized stuff. I'm not kind of lazy, I guess, but all that kind of stuff, I guess.
Interesting. Well, you mentioned the motorized stuff, and you mentioned before being a stuntman that you were into racing. So what kind of racing did you do?
I raced jet ski.
Still do it? Okay.
Well, anymore, I just kind of race for fun. It's still in me, I guess, but I raced professionally jet skis for 10 years for factory Yamaha. And after kind of doing that, I was a test rider for them. And that kind of got me into the stunt business just because the jet ski stuff, believe it or not, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes kind of jet ski stuff that you can get into, kind of get your foot in the door with that stuff, whether it be water safety or doing running camera from the jet ski. So that's kind of how I got into it. But I also followed a couple other racers that got into it, and so they kind of laid the path and made it a little bit easier for me.
Got it. Well, interesting. So, and how long have you been doing stunts?
I have, well, let's see. I started out a live-action stunt show in Hollywood, California, at Universal Studios. It was called Waterworld. That was my first kind of stunt job, and I did that for a few years, and then you have to get into the union, the SAG union. I got my SAG card about 10 years ago, and so I don't work at Universal Studios anymore, and just primarily do whatever, TV shows or movies, or I was in a commercial recently, so.
Wow, I mean, that's got. I'm sorry.
We gotta ask what commercial you're.
Well, there's a Snickers Godzilla commercial, and recently they've kind of edited out the part I was in, but there's where the Godzilla's riding the quad and jumping the jump. That was me.
Wait, you were Godzilla?
I was Godzilla.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we have Godzilla on the air tonight. I cannot believe that.
What the G stands for, and G.
That's awesome.
Cool.
So besides Godzilla, who's the most interesting person you've met? While I guess interesting can be how you define it, met through your work, and who's the most interesting person you've met through Ingress?
Well, through work, my best friend, his dad is actually Optimus Prime, and so he's a pretty cool guy in himself. And I used to race with my buddy, and now we're both doing stunts together. But back when we used to race, I used to stay at his house in Toluca Lake, and his dad would come home after partying, whatever, and he would bring like Jonathan Winters over or Mike White, and like people in the entertainment business, they're fun people. I mean, there's a reason why they get paid to entertain. So there's too many to list, really. In Ingress, I really can't put a finger on one person. I've met so many people in this playing Ingress that I mean, it's been a great experience. Made a lot of good friends, and I have my typical cohorts that we do whatever shenanigans with, but we all have a good time, and I'm thankful for that.
So just for clarity, real quick, are you talking about Peter Cullen, the voice actor?
Yeah, Peter Cullen. His son is actually named Peter Cullen as well, but he goes by Clay, and so yeah, Optimus Prime. That's him.
So not only are you Godzilla, you are best friends with Optimus Prime. Wow. All right. Sorry.
That's an strange mixed. What is the craziest, most life-threatening stunt you have ever performed?
Well, usually when everything goes good, it's just a huge adrenaline rush, and it's relatively safe. But when it goes bad, it can go bad big. And the closest I came to dying, I suppose, was I was working on a show called Vegas, I think it's called, and I was doubling a guy riding a motorcycle, and we're just doing a simple scene where I'm running down the sidewalk, and there's other stunt players jumping out of the way as I'm going down the sidewalk, and the camera bike is actually running parallel to me with the cars wiping by. So at the end of the kind of sidewalk, this had taken place in New Mexico. There's a town called Las Vegas in New Mexico, and they turned this entire street into like 1950s Las Vegas. But at the end of the street, they rather than continue the street, they put a big green screen at the end of the street. And what they used to hold the green screen was a semi. So the whole side of the semi was the green screen. So anyways, I'm going down the sidewalk, and the picture's cut. And so off the curb, I'm riding this old kind of homemade Harley. And so I go off the curb, and I kind of gas it and pull back, kind of just to wheelie off the curb a little bit. And the throttle grip comes off in my right hand, and the throttle sticks wide open. And of course, my weight goes back, and I'm going full blast in second gear, I suppose, right towards the semi. And so basically, I would have smashed through the bottom of the green screen, and the semi would have probably got me right in the chest and whatever. It was just a moment where, you know, I had to do this impossible sit-up to get back up. Only one hand, because I couldn't pull on the handlebars, or else I would have crashed. I suppose that would have been better than dying into the semi. But anyways, by the time I grabbed the brakes, I did a two-wheel lockup and stopped like literally inches away from the semi. So that's the most closest I've been to like getting seriously hurt. But you know, there's been injuries, I suppose, along the way, but it comes with it. But when it goes good, it's not that bad. When it goes bad, it goes bad. It goes bad.
That is crazy. So speaking of dangerous things, you've had run-ins with wild boars and bobcats while playing Ingress, I've been told. Can you tell us about those experiences?
Yeah. Point Conception Lighthouse. It was a fun place for a while. I was primarily, me and Marawi were the only two agents that had ever visited there. And you got to go to this place at low tide. So you got to time it, and you got to get there, do your stuff, and then get back before the tide comes up, or else you're going to be swimming. And Point Conception is on the most treacherous waters of California. Anyways, I typically would go at very late at night, and so I'm walking down the beach, and it's about a 5 mile. Well, it's 5 miles as the crow flies, and it's really dark and whatever. It's foggy there all the time. There's no moon, so it's really dark. And I have a little flashlight, and I see some eyes right in front of me. And I stop, and these eyes take off up the cliff. And the cliff's actually pretty steep, and the thing's going up. And by this time, I realize it's a bobcat, right? And so I shine my flashlight on it, and it's going up the cliff, and the cliff gets really steep right there, to the point where the bobcat's no longer going up, and it starts to fall down. Now it's in front of me where I want to be, and when it comes back down, it's, you know, it tried flight, it's fight or flight, right? So it tried flight, and so when it falls back down, it's going to be a fight between me and the bobcat. Now I got the flashlight, so I started running. It starts falling down, you know, slipping, and you can hear the claws trying to get traction. And I just ran underneath it and ran as fast as I could for as long as I could, just to kind of become not a threat to it. So it was pretty good.
Crazy.
That's nuts. Are you up for taking some questions from the audience?
Absolutely.
All right. Daphne.
Okay. Yeah, we've got a question from Chris Ruthenberg from Indiana, and he wants to know if you've broken any bones, and if so, how many?
Well, I've broken 2 bones now, and only one was stunt related. The first bone I ever broke was my femur, and I crashed, just kind of, I guess, horsing around. I crashed into the back of a semi, and the dash of the car came back and kind of broke my leg, and I actually didn't used to wear my seatbelt, and it had this car was a Volkswagen Corrado, and it had automatic seatbelts, so that probably saved my life. And I wear seatbelts all the time now. So, and the other time was I smashed. We were in a fight, and the guy I was against was a pipe fight, and it's all real near misses. And the pipe swung around and hit the end of my middle finger, and it shattered the bone in there. And I tell you, that was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. I had to poke the nail to relieve the pressure, but before that it was unbelievable. But the funny thing is, the week after that, I got a job riding a 1969 BSA up in San Francisco. I actually doubled Hunter S. Thompson, and which I'm bigger than him, but when I'm riding a motorcycle and going up and down the coast, I suppose it doesn't matter. And but anyways, I'm riding this 1969 BSA after I shattered the tip of my finger, and this thing vibrated so bad I could feel the bones rattling in my finger.
Oh my
Oh
God.
my God. I like how you start that with, I've only broken my femur, as if that's not one of the worst bones to break that could cause permanent, well, death.
That's actually it's actually the best one. This is back when I was racing jet skis, and they put a rod in it, and a week later I walked out of the hospital with the help of a cane, and a month later I was racing again. So any other bone, I mean, when you have a bone you can put a rod down the middle, you're good to go, right?
That's one way of looking at it. I mean, I guess, right? So, all right. Ray?
Well, Mark, one of the achievements you mentioned in the past was that you led the first mega field to cover all of Los Angeles and San Diego. When was it set up, and how did you accomplish it?
Oh, the first one we did, it was March of 2013. It was extremely hard because back then there were no Jarvis viruses to knock down links. Of course, there weren't as many people and there weren't as many portals, but still, it took a lot of planning. Since I started playing the game, I felt it's all about mine units. It's capturing mine units and protecting the people underneath. And so when I was kind of a noob, I made a big field, and I'm like, hey, I wonder what the biggest field is, because I just made a pretty big one, even though it was a fish field. And so I did a little bit of searching. It looked like Atlanta made a really big one that covered most of the state of Georgia. And so I'm like, oh well, that's way bigger than mine. So I'm like, I want to make the biggest field. And so basically back then there were no link amps as well, so you needed 8 level 8 agents, and then you had to get them all to these distant places, and the range was whatever, I forget, 600 kilometers. And so anyways, we did it. The initial plan was that we were going to use one portal, and we had to change the plans because some blockers went up, and so we got it up. And the funny thing was the way mine units were calculated back then, they were a little bit skewed and incorrect, because when we covered Southern California, we only got 78,000 mine units. But but it was fun because the next day I got to go meet with Niantic. A bunch of us did, and the field stayed up right before our meeting. So it was neat. The key on that, I suppose, was maybe it was just dumb luck, but the tools I used to calculate everything, to run lines, it did it properly. And I had a feeling in the back of my mind that the curves, that the lines would follow the curvature of the Earth, and that was the key on making that field and why it was successful, because I went with that thought.
So Mark, Ingress is cool though. Ingress is cool and all, and that's why we're talking. But you've got a little bit of a unique background, so I'm going to shift gears and go back to that for a second. What's been the most fun project? I won't call them movies necessarily, but project that you've worked on.
Most fun project. Well, the funnest movie I ever worked on was Piranha 3D, and usually the B movies are the funnest, right? But it's actually it's a halfway decent movie. But we were in Lake Havasu for over a month, and I was working with a lot of the Marine Department on that, and so we had all the boats and we had all the jet skis, and we had a processor rig that I drove Adam Scott through. Like, there was one scene, there were, I think, 100 extras, and there were $100,000 boats all tied up or whatever, and I had to race through on this processor where I had a jet ski, and then basically at the top of a jet ski mounted to the back of this thing with Adam Scott on the back, and then there was a cameraman sitting behind me. So it's extremely heavy, extremely long, and really hard to control, and I had to go as fast as I could through all the stuff. But we only got 1 day off a week, and on the day off, all the extras and everybody, there's nothing to do in Lake Havasu but drink and go on the lake, right? Well, we had all the boats, so we'd work all week long on the water, and then Sunday morning on our day off, we'd get up at the crack of dawn and spend all day on the water again. So that was really fun.
Nice. Okay, so I mean, sometimes kids growing up will maybe dream of being a stuntman. Was that your dream as a kid, or what kind of work did you think you'd be going to?
You know, I didn't know. Like I said, I've always been like a risk taker and reckless and wrecking cars and all that stuff. Maybe not on purpose, but it just kind of, I guess I just kind of fell into it. And what got me into it was because I had such a strong jet ski background that I could come into the business with a specialty, and that's the key, to have a specialty. And then so water's my specialty, whether it's really anything on water skiing, diving, tow surfing, all that stuff. I've kind of always been a water guy, and so that got me into it, and I realized I really love what I do, because before you are about to do a big stunt or something, you actually almost don't want to do it. Your insides are turned upside down, but when they say action, you have to do it, and then kind of just adrenaline and instinct takes over after that, and after you pull it off, the stunt was successful, it's like you're on top of the world. It's just like you won a race. And so so racing, I suppose, is my first real love, but the stunt, you get the same kind of feelings as you do from racing, so I really enjoy it.
So Mark, I'm feeling that you enjoy so much doing stunts on water, but that's your favorite stunt, or do you prefer on land or on air? Which is your favorite stunt?
anything really, anything that's difficult and it because they all scare me. You know, if you don't get scared, something's wrong. And so, but the feeling of getting scared is my, I guess it's my drug, right? The adrenaline I get from that is what keeps me going. So, I don't know if I have anything favorite, but to be honest, like driving cars in TV shows and movies, that's fun. Motorcycles, anytime you get to ride a motorized vehicle, that's fun. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just double guy and you do some fight moves and you get knocked down, where that's not really that fun. But when you smash a car or jump a jet ski through a flaming hoop or whatever, that's good stuff.
Wow. Well, you definitely got a really good self-awareness of what drives you. So I'm curious, what has Ingress taught you about yourself?
Well, in the past, I've never been a hiker. I've never seen like hundreds, maybe thousands of places I've been to, because like I was just off maybe riding a motorcycle on the track or whatever. But what Ingress has done is like it's given me a reason to go to these places. And I dragged a couple agents from Sacramento with me to San Miguel Island, and that's a big trek, and it's really bad seas. And they were probably worried. I know they were worried. And but me, it's just like, well, you know, what's the worst can happen, right? I can swim. We got life jackets. I got a radio. So my perception of danger is probably a lot different than most, but I like to, just like the Bobcat incident, or also I ran into wild boars at Point Conception. It's just like afterwards, after you're live, you know, after you make it, then it's just like a feeling that I can't explain. It's just such satisfaction to do that. So so Ingress, I've hiked more than I ever have in my life. Most of my walking stats in Ingress aren't there because my scanner's off and I'm walking 10, 15, 20 miles to middle of nowhere places, and so, but I enjoy doing that too. So I found a new thing I like, you know, hiking to these places and discovering these new portals and places, and some of the views of the remote places I've been to have been unbelievable.
Wow, that's really cool. Well, thanks so much, Mark Dobson, for taking the time to sit down with us tonight and being our first guest. Would you be available to stick around a bit for our panel discussion if time allows?
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks, Jorge. Ready to introduce our next guest?
Sure. Our next guest comes from the home of the Little Mermaid. In game, you know her as Alyore. I think that's the pronunciation. And and please welcome Agent Sylvia Alyore.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. What is the meaning of your agent name?
Oh, okay.
Did I pronounce it more or less correct?
Yeah, I kind of say Alyore.
Alyore?
Yeah, it's close enough.
Okay.
Yeah, I got this question in the past several times, so I have to say I made it up. It's completely made up by me many years ago, so it doesn't really mean anything. It's just me wanting to have my own unique identity. And so, long time before Google+, before Facebook, I just came up with it, and then I started using it pretty much everywhere. So then when I discovered Ingress, again, I used this agent name. And yeah, it happened that I met people in real life from Ingress, and they already knew a lot of things about me just because I had used this agent name. So it's something I would have not imagined, that it could happen. But yeah, now I've learned it's an important thing. What agent name to use and everything that represents.
Huh. So interesting. Well, speaking of imaginary, if you could be any animal, what would it be and why?
Any animal? Well, humans are pretty much animals, so I'm actually pretty happy with this. But if it were to be anything else, I would say flying animal. That would be. I mean, I'm waiting for a jetpack, but that could take some more years now. So yeah, it would be really cool to be able to just fly around. So I would say, I don't know, something like an eagle, or something that can do something completely different from what I can do.
So I think I know the answer to this one based off of what you just said, but maybe it's different. If you could pick any superpower, what would Sylvia pick?
Now, Sylvia would not pick flying, actually. For a long time, I think I would have chosen seeing the future as a superpower. Yeah, it's not that I'm a control freak or anything, but that would be a good one. But I don't know. Recently, it also kind of takes away from the fun of having surprises in life, and so it's. I think I would trade seeing the future with something else. I mean, let's say teleportation could also be. That could be a good one. It would make
to spoof, right?
No. It would be a superpower. I would not. I would be there, just moving around really fast. I'll probably spend a lot of time just being sandboxed, so in Ingress. But I would say teleportation.
So if you have a follow-up for you. If you can see the future, would you use those powers to benefit you, or would you let things happen naturally, I guess?
I think really hard to let things happen naturally when you kind of know what's about to happen. I would probably try to maneuver stuff. So.
Would you bet on the World Cup outcome and become rich and famous?
Definitely.
Thanks.
That's an easy one.
Well, Sylvia, when you are not answering some silly interviewing questions and playing Ingress, what do you do for real life?
Okay. That doesn't leave that much free time. I do spend some time just chatting around with people and maybe just complaining a bit about Ingress and stuff. Not playing, but just bitching a bit. But okay. Other than that, lately I've trying to do some gardening and stuff, which is very new for me. I used to be quite a city girl, and aside from that, I have more of a science background. I studied physics, but okay. Not everything just science. Before that, I actually did about 10 years of ballet. So I've tried to have very just diverse things to do with my life. Right now, I am trying to do some data visualizations and graphics, things like that. So a little bit of everything.
Multitasking.
Yes, that would be.
Well, we have some questions from the audience, Sylvia, and would you be open to sharing one of those?
Yes, sure.
All right, so Robert Berton asks, how and why did you choose the Enlightened faction?
I actually did not have any information. I just fired up the app and read the descriptions that were back then in December 2012, and I just the Enlightened and Jarvis. Back then he was cool and he hacked his own scanner version and everything. He wasn't that much into this new age stuff that he's into now. It's just the philosophy and everything. I chose not to immediately resist something shapers that are not necessarily evil, and just I think they just promote creativity and something that should be investigated first before just shutting away and resisting. So that's why I chose Enlightened.
Great. Andrew, do you have a question?
Well, we've got another one from Kit, Kit Ray, which I think is pretty interesting. I'm going to twist it up a little bit, though. She wanted to know what got you started playing Ingress. I'd like to know how you found out about Ingress.
I just found out from the internet. I think one day I just saw this YouTube video of the initial trailer for Ingress. And I thought that looks interesting. I'm not that much of a gamer, but it just seemed like something new, something potentially nice. So I just asked for an invite and waited a couple of weeks to get it. So I started in December 2012. It's completely random. I just clicking around and seeing a video, and it's changed my life quite a bit.
Wow.
It's amazing the effects of that one video, huh? So you've been playing since December then, since the very beginning. I think November is the earliest. But what do you, if you can sum it up into something that'll only take a couple minutes, what do you like most about Ingress?
I would say definitely the social aspect. It's not part, I don't know how much it was designed to be. I'm not sure the game was initially just designed to be that social. I think it was maybe a surprise for them as well a little bit. But just meeting new people and having new connections everywhere and sharing this game with people that are initially strangers, but then just start to get to know them. For instance, I've met my boyfriend just playing Ingress, so he was also an agent, luckily the same faction, and we met, and a year passed, and we became a couple. So
would there have been an issue if he was resistance?
It would have definitely made it more difficult, I would say.
Well, what is the most interesting portal that you've ever visited?
Most interesting? I think there would be so many. I think it's really hard to choose one, but the interesting ones are the ones that have some memories attached to it. Like if I had to, I don't know, jump over some fence or go into a forest at night just to get a bunch of keys for a field and stuff like that, I would remember those portals. And interesting, also all the ones I would just not see. I mean, without Ingress, there's a lot of street art portals that I don't know, I might have just passed by on the streets and never look in that corner. But yeah, now having a portal there, I've discovered a lot of street art. So I think it's quite interesting for me.
Nice. Well, speaking of some interesting stuff, what can you tell us about Pandora's box, and what was it like to open it?
Oh. It was an amazing adventure, I would say. Yeah, just packing and going to Amsterdam and just having fun there. Yeah, making a lot of level 8s with a lot of people that I had never met before. Maybe have been, I don't know, talking for a long time, but just, yeah, meeting everybody and having fun together and doing our just our own thing. Yeah, it's just another very social thing that Ingress made possible.
So with all
It's a
these
lot of fun.
with all these great experiences that you've had, is there one that's the most memorable, the thing that really stands out as like this defines my Ingress experience?
Well, memorable. Yeah, I would just say definitely spending an entire night just spending an entire night in Copenhagen. We had such an event. We walked for 8 to 10 hours, something like that, just making portals, making it all green, and stopping for some coffee, something to eat, and then keep going. And yeah.
So, following that, while you are playing Ingress, or while you play Ingress, have you discovered something about yourself, something special, that a different, I don't know, maybe a talent that you didn't know you have?
I did not know I would be able to, just walk an entire night playing a game. That was, and just, I learned to be more resilient, and I've learned to be a little bit more social with people, and I don't know, just having this game in my life. Well, not necessarily a game now, but yeah, it was changed me a little bit. So it's a good thing, I think.
Great.
So you'd say that it really is more than just a game for you?
Yeah, I would say it's more than a game. Yeah, it just became part of my life slowly, curved up. So
Nice. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to us tonight.
thank you.
Know that it's really early in the morning there, like what, 4:45 a.m.?
Yeah, it's getting close. Getting close to 4 a.m. for me.
So I appreciate you sucking down the energy drinks and the coffee I saw you sipping on, but can you stick around for a little bit longer to maybe answer?
Yes,
Awesome.
I will
Thank you.
stick.
All right. So with that, let's bring back Mark. In 1 second, folks. All right, Mark, are you there?
Yep.
Perfect. So one of the questions that somebody submitted I thought was pretty worthy of a panel discussion, and Sylvia kind of touched on it a little bit when she was answering one of the questions. But the question comes from Paul. Oh gosh,
Matsumoto.
Thank you very much for that. This was a question actually for Mark, but I'd really like to ask everybody. And we'll start with Sylvia, since she touched on it. Like I said, what value do you place on the social aspect of Ingress?
I would say it's one of the most important parts. Even, I mean, I also played by myself, and yeah, but I think it's it helped the game a lot. I mean, I think I would have stopped playing if it wasn't for the social aspect. I mean, you can capture portals so many times, you can build farms, it will get, I think, repetitive after a while. But combining this with meeting new people and having also, I don't know, having something to eat, just getting to know each other, and then, going on Ingress adventures and making big fields and collecting keys, and yeah, we're just sending keys to people from other places and everything. I mean, it's, yeah, definitely adds a lot to the game.
Gotcha. It's a good answer. Yeah, it's pretty big. Mark, how do you feel about it? If you had to weight it as an aspect of Ingress, what sort of value would you give it?
It really completes the game. It's it's a cool down time when you meet up with a lot of your friends and you have drinks, eat some food, whatever. A lot of times I'll spend alone out there, hunting portals, whatever. And then, but I really enjoy meeting up and being with people. And that's not, it's not just people of the resistance. We've done some cross faction meetups, and it's really fun. I really enjoy the Enlightened in Los Angeles. I enjoy their company. In Los Angeles, it's a war zone. It's a battle, and so there's a lot of animosity and whatever. But deep down, I mean, we're all the same people, and we all have the same interests and whatever. We're just, one's green and one's blue. So I think it's really big. It really makes the game fun, and it adds a whole new aspect to it. So I think it's really important, and I do enjoy it.
I think you are muted.
Yeah, Daphne's shaking her head in agreement. So, Daphne, how do you feel the same way?
Well, yeah, it's the social aspect is really, I mean, it is, I think, probably the biggest part of the game for me. And there are times when I need to balance my introverted self with my extroverted self. But it does make it much more fun when, I mean, I consider us all playmates, and I consider the game like this big sandbox. It's just a global sandbox. I love that even when I was chasing my Platinum Explorer badge, it wasn't just going to all these different places, but it was the different people I was meeting. I mean, I really didn't do it by myself. I would, different cities that I would visit, I would meet up with local agents who took me around. One person in particular in Richmond, Virginia, he's a librarian, and he took me around and made me actually fall in love with Southern history, and us spending time together, and we had that bond. Or other agents that I met from other cities where we converged on a town, but we all kind of hung out like, hey, playmates from different sandboxes, and we even meet each other in other towns. And so, you know, I love planning my travels so that I can meet up with other agents, and even if it's not pre-planned, somehow usually we'll end up running into other agents. And yeah, that small world aspect really adds so much more texture to this game. I mean, that all said, there is the aspect that there are some players who don't particularly associate this as a social, maybe real life game, and they have these personas where they want to be hostile to the enemies, and they may run into the people in real life and continue to be hostile, and that makes it the game less fun, I think, for both parties involved. So I think if people can keep that in mind, that we are human beings and we're all here to have fun, it could be a much more enjoyable experience for everyone involved.
Well said, well said. So, Signor Petreo, what are your thoughts?
Um, for me, it's everything. I think for me, the social aspect is what keeps me playing Ingress. If it wasn't for that part of the game, I probably play Ingress for maybe 5, 6 months, and that's it. The social aspect is what merge all together, what makes it a, a game with values, you know, a game that is not just a challenge for some time to take down some portals, some green portals in my case, or to build a control field or whatever. I think what makes it important is that part of being with people, enjoying, having, knowing people that if you never play Ingress, you probably would never known in your life. So for me, Ingress is that. Ingress is not not a game. Is is it has turned into the social aspect of the game. Totally.
Yeah, yeah, I'm kind of in agreement. For me, at least at this point in time, it's pretty much everything in the game. It's getting to know people. I just came back from traveling for business and went down there, met some folks I'd never met before. I may have known them by their name. They walked me around, gave me a tour of the city. It was awesome. So I really enjoy it. But there's good and bad to social, right? There's also mob mentality, and mob mentality can be both positive and negative. So you get a bunch of people together, like Daphne touched on, who don't want to do something, or maybe you have a group of people who start out positive, but then you've got sort of the loudest voice, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right, and people start paying attention to that person, and it gets negative. Things can go kind of sour fast, especially when you depend on these people and you interact with them. So I don't think that happens a lot, but I've definitely seen it happen. I think things are more positive than they are negative, but an interaction is huge. In order to make a level 8 portal, you have to have 8 level 8 agents there, and it just forces the social aspect into the open. And so for me, I think it's a huge aspect, if not the number one reason to play the game. So Daphne really, really wants me to ask another question of you guys.
Sorry. Oh, that's a good one.
It was. I kind of already.
It.
I kind of already asked Sylvia it, but I'll ask Mark. What got you into the game? How did you find Ingress and get into it?
I was kind of big into Android. I still am, I suppose. I like to technology. I like hacking things. I like and I like the open sourceness of Android. So of course I heard about it through Twitter and G+, and I was curious, right? I would try everything, right? Sign up for everything, and something will be good. And so I started in December of 2012, and really I evolved where in the beginning it was just kind of a game or whatever, and then I started to really appreciate it. I suppose probably a couple months later, and I I really have fun doing it. So, but
Ray, how'd you find this crazy world that we play and spend 80 hours a week doing?
I'm kind of stumped here. Hearing about it and then starting to play it, but what really brought my appreciation to the game was finding these new places, as Sylvia said, that you never knew existed, or that you've driven by 100 times, and they're right in your backyard. And there's so many places I've went to that it's just like I never would have went to without this game. And I've driven by them. Like I where I live is close to so many awesome things, and from as simple as the street art, a mural on a building, I'd never see that. But even bigger things, the Getty Center in Los Angeles, I've never been there. I never would have went there. I can tell you, I never would have went there. And because of this game, I went there, and I'm so thankful for that.
So, Senor Jorge, what led you down the rabbit hole? How'd you find the rabbit hole?
Curiosity. I found it same as Mark. I love Android. I love technology. I love to read all these blogs about the new gadgets and everything. So somewhere, I don't know, I don't remember exactly. Somewhere I read about Ingress, and I think Ingress was like 2 days already online when I read about it, and immediately the article catch me, and I was like linking like the first big Google game, so I was, well, okay, I like Google, so it's worth it to try, and in the other part, it was like agents and to discover things in walking your city or your place in well, everything gets interesting, and in my mind it grows like a temptation. So I immediately I was reading on my cell phone. I think I was in a meeting or something like that. So immediately I could get into a computer. I get into the Ingress Intel page, and I put in my email and ask for my invite. So that was the way I get into the game, and I think it took me a little bit to get into the game, because I was like in a relationship, and I was like really into that relationship more than into the game. So I was like trying to discover how was the com what the com was to working, because I was like reading all the stuff and everything was saying things, and I was reading all these actions of the other agents, and I didn't understand what was happening. So when I took the time, or I had the time to dig into the game, I was mesmerized, and I thought it was something really cool. So I start finding things near to my home too, and exploring places in my city that is a big city, as it could be Los Angeles or Washington or New York, and it was great. It was awesome to start finding some other agents and look them from the other side of the street, and trying to think, well, is this one of my side or is from the other side? So it's an enemy. So should I hide or I say hello? So it was great.
Ms. Parker, what about yourself?
I think I'm one of the few non-techie people that got into the game, and actually I was recruited by someone who was a friend of a friend, and he just said, "Hey, you have," he noticed my phone at the bar, And it's like, well, you actually go to a lot of interesting places, and you live in a particular neighborhood. And, there's this game. Are you into games? I'm like, I don't know, maybe Tetris a little bit. And he just started telling me about you want to explore all these different locations, and sometimes you want to go inside buildings, especially if you need to hit I mean, it was all garbled. I was really curious. He said, well, sometimes you also want to break into places. He didn't say, like, you should break in, but you kind of want to try to access things. And it's called Ingress, and, just got to be careful because there have been arrests and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, arrest? I'm in. And no one, as far as I know, throughout the entire time has ever been arrested for anything. But it just got the curiosity out of me, and he said, yeah, it's exclusive invites, and it took about a month for him to get the invite for me. And it happened to be inauguration weekend in Washington, D.C., and he and his friend had taken me out by the White House, ironically, to capture a lot of different portals, and I made, I think, 1 or 2 levels that first day, but I knew that later on that night I was going to one of those balls at this hotel across the street from the White House, and it was actually really neat that first night to be in my dress and heels and kind of playing like this James Bondy sort of role, the gala party, but I'm like playing the secret agent too. So sometimes I love this whole subversive world that isn't seen by the typical world that we've known most of our lives, and since then it's sort of been I guess we've all got some sort of addiction to it, and that has definitely appealed to me, and I both thank and curse my friend for getting into it.
Are you still friends with that person?
I'm still very good friends with this person. I kick his ass, just as far as but he's actually it's been really fun, and it's fun for us to sort of come full circle with the different roles that we play. Where he mentored me for a long time, and now sometimes we plan things together every now and then, or we accidentally run into each other at events, and and it's actually really cool, and it's brought us together. It's sort of, I don't want to say alienated the mutual friendship that we had, and we still all get together, but yes, the conversation may tend to gear a little bit more towards game-centric, but our friends are very patient with us and cool about it. So. Thankfully.
Well, we're running low on time, and nobody really wants to hear my story, so I'll keep it really brief. Just like Jorge and Mark, I was kind of big into the Android world. I was doing a show just like this called The Android Show. I was an early adopter of it. The guy who I did that with is actually Scotty Brown, Agent Scotty up in Seattle. He's a resistance agent. Good friend of mine. Shout out, Scotty. And a guy that followed me named Corey Robb. Tossed me an invite. We got an extra code in November, and so here I am. I'm thankful for it. It's kind of bolstered who I am today. I've learned a lot about myself, and it's made me a better person, and that's pretty cool. Because we have 2 people who are Android fans on the show, though, I will give a shout out to the Big Android Barbecue. So if you're a tech guy, if you like Android, the Big Android Barbecue, the URL is bigandroidbbq.com. I think I've gone every year except for last year, unfortunately. They're on year 5 now. It's a big group of guys and girls who like Android. They get together. There's some seminars. There's people talking. There's giveaways. It's really fun. It's in Hurst, Texas, right outside of Dallas. You can fly there. I'm sure the Barcode Legion, Matt, his guys are going to be all over it this year, just like they have been. Actually, funny enough, a lot of people I know in the game I met from the whole Android world early on. So check out the Big Android Barbecue. You Google search for it, or just bigandroidbbq.com. That's all I got. So I want to thank our guests for coming on tonight. Really appreciate you, Sylvia, staying up and not falling asleep while myself or Daphne have been talking.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mark, thank you for sharing all your amazing personal stories with us, and we'll try to keep my children away from watching your interviews so they don't grow up to break their femurs. But no, thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Daphne, Jorge, as always, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Those of you watching again, if you just caught a bit of it, came in late or something, you can watch the whole show. Will be uploaded to YouTube at our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/behind the scanner. I want to thank you all for tuning in and watching us tonight. We will be back next week, Thursday night at 9 p.m. I don't recall our guests off the top of my head, except I think the Enlightened guys from Hawaii, and I forget the resistance person. So we will put that out like we do every Monday. And if you have any guest suggestions, again, bit.ly/BTS_guest, bit.ly/BTS_guest. You can make a request if you want, put a name down. Not a promise that we're going to get them all on, but we've got a pretty extensive list, and our guest invites go through almost July into August now. So also, please check out Kelly Colton. You don't see her on camera right now, but she helps us out with some stuff behind the scenes. She does an Ingress happy hour Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find information about her stuff on her page or by going to the Meridian Project. It's the Ingress happy hour Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Thank you all for joining us, and until then, good luck. Happy hacking.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.